Hello, I am Carl Henry, Director of MLApps Agency. John Dupree and Jeff Seaver, renowned specialists in digital marketing, introduced us, developed and detailed in a powerful webinar, about what we can expect from digital marketing in these times and beyond. They explain why mobile marketing apps are essential to be successful in your business, no matter what activity you do. This event includes tons of powerful information, which you should not miss if you are really looking to take your business to the next level, or at least be able to face your competition. I recommend you take notes, which by the way you will see that this event is full of invaluable information. That is why I ask you to stay alert and avoid all kinds of distraction, because you will receive information totally free, for which in other organizations you would have to pay thousands of dollars. That said, I leave you in the hands of John and Jeff. We spoke to each other at the end of this session. I hope you enjoy it.
All right. So we're just going to start out with a little bit of background. This is an incredibly complex topic. John and I have taught this many times. We actually have somebody asked us to put together a series on digital marketing, and we ended up with 8 different workshops. So this is really just one of them. That's how rich, deep, and sometimes confusing this particular topic can be. But one of the things we always like to start with is just sort of the attitude that underlines our approach. And that really is one of sort of discarding the old school technique of talking folks into buying stuff, and instead really relying on a very, very modern approach, which is really creating much more of a dialogue and really establishing a genuineness and authenticity. So that's our first rule, is that in creating your content, in marketing your company, what people really want to know and feel and see now is a genuine, deep caring. And the degree to which people can discern when that's not present is sort of shocking. In surveys and studies that we've read, even small kids can figure out from text messages what kind of emotional state the other person texting is in, which is sort of remarkable for those of us who don't speak text, who are no longer elementary school and preteens. The other important key that we recommend is basically looking at how you're providing an underlying service, an underlying need, if you will. If many of you guys ever studied psychology, you probably remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those are the bedrock concerns underneath. You know, somebody might go out and say, I really need a new jogging outfit. But underneath, there may be much more bedrock concerns. I really want to be accepted. I really want to be safe. I really want to be part of a group. I really want to be envied. Whatever those key things underneath, that's what we try to encourage business owners to get at. So that's probably enough out of me for a minute. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Jeff, can you hear me? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's a little bit, where I'm sitting, it's a little bit dim to hear you. You don't sound dim, your voice.
I'll try to speak up. All right. Yeah, so my name is John Dupree with Calibrate Marketing. And to tie into the 2 rules of trust, when it comes to service, this trust, it has to be between 2 people. So the service really needs to be recognized by the other person. It can't be a service that you feel you're doing. It has to be a service that they recognize you're doing. They need to understand the value and the impact of your commitment to this. And through that, then you will be able to build that level of trust between each other. And the big question that comes up with when it comes to trust is that most of this is happening throughout history as a person-to-person experience. You know, a handshake, I'm looking in your eyes, we're talking to each other. But with social distancing and COVID, how does that happen? And that's really what started us to think about, you know, how marketing is changing and what's going to continue to change going forward. So as we as we're looking at this goal of being trusted, we have to think in terms of what do we used to do, from being able to sit down and talk with somebody and have a meeting and walk them through the product or go through the service or look over their plant, to how can it be done with social distancing, with not being in contact with them, the contactless, whether that's a contactless pickup for a meal, or if it's contactless for doing a Zoom webinar, such as we're doing now, rather than the live in-person webinars we used to do, seminars we used to do.
I keep forgetting that for some reason the arrow keys aren't going to do it. It's got to be clicked on. There we go.
So, so when we talk about marketing, marketing is different than selling. Marketing allows people to see what the effect of a product or service will be, what they will experience, without having to do it firsthand. So we really want to create a story that they can imagine themselves in that story. And from there, they'll be able to make an intelligent decision on whether they want to pursue that product or service. And a big part of the marketing is how to position yourself. We want to be able to demonstrate why we do something differently than what may be expected. We're not just a me too or off the shelf product, that we've come up with a way of offering this service or offering this product that's different than what the person would normally have expected. That difference, it may cause some friction in the prospect. They may be unsure about, okay, what, if that's not how I expected it, I'm not comfortable. And as we resolve that friction, that creates an emotional commitment on the prospect's part to believe in what we're doing and how we're doing it. So using your marketing and your story to position yourself in your way is a vital in order to get that level of an evangelist that we'll be talking about in a little while.
John, I just want to encourage you to speak up. I got a comment here that someone's having a little trouble.
Okay. I'll come closer, and hopefully that will help.
It sounds better from here, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So one of the things we talk about is the buyer's journey. This is a pretty common sales approach. You'll hear us use words like sales funnel and the buyer journey. A lot of this stuff really comes from the old school world of marketing. IBM probably being the best example of somebody that really codified and put this thing into a very specific order of steps. But what we've discovered is that's really had to be kind of reinvented for the sake of digital marketing. So if we talk about that journey, here's some pretty interesting questions to ask of your service or product and the people that you're trying to reach. A key thing down at the bottom, you'll notice we're using the word influencing and influencers. That's really a brand new invention. I mean, it existed with spokespeople and celebrity endorsements years ago, but these days the notion of folks doing literally nothing but influencing sales is kind of a remarkable change, but it's actually just a key part of the journey. And I've discovered, being a marketer, I figure I'm immune to every trick. I know all the tricks. And then I'll find myself right in the middle of a sales process and realizing I'm completely hooked in by some person whose influence and expertise or celebrity or whatever I respect, completely turning my head around on buying something. It's pretty funny. I guess the key message is how powerful this really is when it's done right. I watched a movie shot on an iPhone 11 when they first came out. It was done of a taxi driver in Japan, a woman with her little baby. She couldn't find daycare, so she takes the kid with her on her taxi rides. Now you'd think to yourself, this is just a Hallmark card, sentimental bunch of nonsense. But I absolutely saw that movie, and I knew if I didn't run out and buy that iPhone 11 Pro with that camera, I was doomed. And that kind of stuff is really, really powerful when you're in the middle of it.
If anybody has ever had the opportunity to try to sell to a married person, you know that the spouse has a lot of influence over whether that decision will happen or not. So putting that message together so that it gets carried through to the spouse, that it can either be relayed to the person that you're talking to their spouse, or that the spouse hears that and they may have different ideas about why a purchase should or should not happen. You got to make sure that that buyer's journey covers both of those areas. So the question becomes, who's going to guide the prospect through these? In the past, it was a salesperson for the most part. You would call somebody up, they would answer all your questions, they would lay out all the different steps, give you enough information so that you can make a decision. And that salesperson would really take it, step by step. Next slide.
Oh yeah, click, Jeff.
Yeah. Okay, and the way that they did that, the old school way, was by listening. The best salespeople, they knew how to listen, and they would ask certain questions, gather all the information, and then they make a recommendation to you on what you should do. And there's a saying out there that nobody likes to be sold, but everybody wants to buy. As digital marketing has become more and more popular, we see that the knowledge, who holds that information, has shifted from the salesperson over to the buyer, the purchaser. Go to the next slide.
I just want to quickly mention one of the things that IBM used to talk about was the funnel of pain. Nowadays, we call it a sales funnel, but what they used to describe was the notion of really listening so well that you really understand and can identify. What's that famous Bill Clinton thing? I feel your pain. But to be able to identify where is the need or the pain, and then paint yourself as the portrait of the solution to it. Go ahead, John.
So what's happened is that digital marketing has shifted that power of knowledge from the seller, from the salesperson, more and more over towards the buyer. And it's happened in a very radical speed over the last 20 years. And what we find is that every single year, more and more information seems to be available to people faster and faster. Okay. So we get things such as mobile devices, which allows the internet to be accessed anywhere, which means information can be found everywhere. It's fast. Not only is it text, but video. Now we're getting into AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, things like this, where people are able to immerse themselves into a different reality, live chat, interactivity, and the collection of data so that a company can learn everything about you and really be able to create a marketing message directly for your interests and your needs.
Did everybody notice there was a big to-do about the Trump forces, if you will? After the election, they were disputing the election, and Rudy Giuliani convened a press conference at the Four Seasons in New Jersey, and somebody messed up, and they booked the Four Seasons Landscaping Company, which was a small strip mall outfit, and they actually conducted the press conference out and back in the alley in between a porn shop and a crematory. And this became a giant laughing stock and quite a powerful and popular meme across the internet. So I'm watching Twitter one day, and this guy had created that entire back alley with the storefront, with the store doors in the back, and the microphones and the podiums and the windows and the crematory and the porn shop, had built an entire virtual reality world, and then invited all of his pals to come in and view it. He literally had built it, I think, in 5 hours the night before, and just sent out a message on Twitter. So the next thing you know, there's 20 or 30 people all wearing VR equipment wandering around this stage set, if you will, that he created in real time. And everybody's laughing hysterically and talking. And it just occurred to me how unbelievably powerful that is. Never mind the politics of it, but just the notion that you can actually, in a couple of hours, you or your 11-year-old kid maybe can create an entire virtual world and invite everybody you know to come in and participate in it. And they were all walking around going, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable. I can't believe what a great job you did. We can see through the windows. Everything looks so realistic." And everyone's cracking up laughing and sharing and doing handshakes and high fives. And they're all dressed up as avatars of animals and stuff. But the fact that it was done at all in one evening, and then everybody participated the next morning, you know, to keep in pace with a rapid news cycle was astonishing to me. I've never really had a chance to firsthand participate in that before. So it really shows you how fast things are changing. For instance, your own kids can be creating a virtual classroom and inviting in all of their pals to study and work together where they can actually see each other all sitting there. So it's a really big change.
Yeah, we're also seeing with the gaming world, the Minecrafts and the Roblox and so forth, that people are creating virtual classroom, virtual malls, concert performers are doing live performances in these virtual environments. And for the under 18 crowd, this is normal for them. They have absolutely no issue attending a live conference and seeing their friends as their animations, avatars. So it's really where things are headed. And what we're seeing is that this has accelerated quite a bit. So the big part of this change was that instead of the salespeople educating and offering the recommendations, now the prospects are able to do their own learning and find out exactly all the information that they've been looking for. They can check out reviews, they can talk about testimonials, they get word of mouth through social media, they learn their case studies, how to use videos, all this stuff. And only once they're ready to make a decision will they talk to a salesperson just to verify that it matches up to everything that they've learned.
Right. By the way, John, did you get the copy that I put on Dropbox most recently before this started? There's a PowerPoint there waiting for you in case you want to.
That explains why my slides are a little out of sync with yours. I have to jump around. All right.
It's slightly out of sync. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh.
We were working on this right up to the last minute, as usual.
Yep. So the big thing that digital marketing has done over the last 10 years is really shifting that knowledge from the seller to the buyer. And then this year, that has happened probably 10 times as fast.
Right, which we'll get into a little bit more in just a second. So we've been doing a lot of research and reading on our own, but also in preparation for this webinar, just to try to look at what's out there. And it's quite remarkable. I think the single biggest change that I'm seeing, and John, you can tell me if you agree, is what COVID-19 has really done to the entire world of marketing. It's turned it right on its ear, and so fast. I had no idea the whole world could pivot. The whole world could pivot in 6 months like this. So we'll talk a little bit about that buyer's journey we talked about before.
So what we want to do in marketing is we want to be able to start planning the buyer's journey when we can't meet with the prospects. So we have to do it ahead of time and get it all laid out so that each one of the prospects we may run into, that we have a plan for how that journey should happen, what kind of questions they're going to be asking, anticipate all of this ahead of time, and be able to put it so that it's readily available without us having to directly give it to them. So typical stage for a buyer's journey, you have the initial awareness, then they start to consider solutions, they make a decision about that solution, they actually retain purchase this, and then they start to talk about how great or not so good it was. So we want to take them all through each step, and there's different levels of handholding that have happened in the past, but now we need to be able to address all of these without actually being face-to-face with somebody. So typical solution pattern is that they know nothing about you, so you start to search, usually a problem. Then they will come across a white paper or a blog article, and they start to read about that, and they learn something about who you are and what your offerings are. They may attend a webinar, so they become more interested to really get a more direct personalization with you. They'll start to compare you to other people, other solutions that are out there. And then once they have done the comparisons and found the real value that you're offering, then they become a buyer and a fan.
It's also, I just wanted to just mention that this is kind of our philosophy with websites themselves. We try to practice something called driving and conversion. The driving is how do you get people to come and visit your website in the first place. But the second part, conversion, is the key question. A lot of folks say, what should I put on my website? What should I say? Who should I target it towards? But our question always is, what's the conversion you want to take place? Are you trying to change a complete stranger into somebody that's just interested? For example, if you're selling X-ray equipment that costs $150,000, has to be approved by a board and requisitioning in huge amounts of payment, you're not going to close a sale on a website. What you're really trying to do is convert somebody from knowing nothing about you into somebody that's interested in learning more. There's another interesting stage to all of this, and that's pre-awareness. At least that's what we call it. And that's the notion that you can actually begin the buyer's journey before anybody's even exhibited interest. And obviously, point of sale and outdoor and a bunch of other advertising platforms are really well known for this. If you read anything about shopper marketing, when people go into stores, they spend a tremendous amount of money researching human behavior in those environments. And it's incredible how much you can affect folks when they're not even looking for your particular product or looking in your sector.
And this often will happen when people, they're unaware that they actually have a problem. They think that this is just normal, and then they'll see something and be like, oh my God, I never even was aware that that existed. And that can now resolve something that was an uncovered need. And we see this a lot now with social media, where something will pop up on your feed that you're like, oh, I've never known about that. And it entices you to start to search to find out, where is that? How much does it cost? How often, is it something that's really available, et cetera?
So here we just wanted to share just some general observations that we're noticing about how much COVID-19 has affected everything. And it certainly starts, number one, with the most obvious choice, and that's an incredible jump in screen time. I can remember fellow parents contacting me in absolute distress at the amount of time that their kids are spending looking at screens. And 4 months later, they're contacting me saying, I got to find new stuff for my kid to look at on a screen because I'm going to kill them or myself if I don't find some way to distract them and get them off my back, because I'm no longer working in an office. I'm here 24/7.
Yeah, so the screen has really become the window of engagement for the world. As we used to go out and socialize, now it's all being done through the screen, and we've become much more comfortable with the screen. It used to be something that would cause an obstruction. We'd be hesitant to do anything through the screen that would cost money or commit us to something. And now it's becoming more and more that it's actually easier to do it on the screen.
Yeah, what's a good example is online banking. I knew a lot of people who just never did online banking. Usually people, I would say above the age of 40, but they just were never comfortable with it, never trusted it. And all of a sudden they're absolutely forced, number one, to trust it, but number two, to learn how to use it. Then they become used to it. And the next thing you know, they can't do without it. So that's a really classic example of what we're seeing changing.
And something that's happened this year specifically has to do with doctor visits. It's more and more common now to have a doctor visit through your screen. You have your initial consultation, everything. Where in the past, people were really hesitant to do that because they wanted to actually talk to the doctor. They had to show the doctor what was going on, or felt like it wasn't really going to be as good of a session. But now it's very, very common, and it's easy. They're able to get a virtual visit a lot faster and a lot easier than they were to meet them in person. So what we're looking at now is that, it's all digital all the time. The trust has greatly increased. So we need to take a look at our typical sales and marketing practices and figure out, where do we normally have to have direct communication with a prospect? Where do we, really want them to pick up the phone and call us, or that we sit down and meet with them, so forth, and understand why. Why do we need to do that? What is it that is being gained by that social interaction? And can it be put online? Can it become frictionless? So anything that's part of your sales and marketing funnel, it needs to be converted over somehow or another to be changed so they can go online and make it so as easy as possible for somebody to get that information without having to go through a gatekeeper of some type.
John, I can't believe you used the word frictionless. Next thing you're going to start saying granular instead of detailed. So what we're going to talk about kind of our adaptation of the classic sales funnel now. And then the first step being to make the connection. And it's really about recognizing opportunities, establishing a qualification, and building trust. People contact us all the time wanting to build a website. And I'll ask them, what's the purpose of the website? And they'll say, I just need to look legitimate. We actually have a name for that. It's called a legitimacy website. And it just means people will go online, and if you're not there, they're not so sure they can really trust you. I know just the other day, I went looking for a locksmith, and a friend of mine knows this locksmith. He's a great locksmith. He's nearby, and he didn't have a website. He didn't have any kind of an online posting, and I got nervous. I did eventually reach him, and he came over and he said, I'm not doing that internet stuff. I don't like that stuff. You call me, I'll come and fix the locks. But I was like, can I trust this guy if he doesn't have a website? The irony being there's actually not that much that's trustworthy about a website. I've joked that I could, in an afternoon, I could create a website that absolutely portrays me as a board certified top 100 neurologist, a brain surgeon. And most folks would not be able to tell that I made the whole thing up. So it's largely illusory, but it doesn't mean it's not just as important now that you just simply got to be there. John, you want to take this one?
Sure. So the next thing is, we want to somehow be able to build the audience. That means to establish a continuous communication with them. More than just somebody coming to our website, reading a piece and popping off of it. We want to do that lead generation and get the authority, the approval for us to be able to communicate with them. So a lot of times it may be set up through, that we have a phone number for them to call, and that will start the communication, or there may be a form for them to fill out with contact information. But when you're higher up in the funnel, when you're just saying, I think I have a problem, but I'm not sure, that's when they don't really want to have a phone call with you. They don't want you to reach out and talk to them, but they will download a white paper. They will do a chat session because that's a lot safer, a lot less risk to be sold. So we want to make sure that we have this lead generation and prospect development through all stages of that funnel. So at the top as well as at the bottom. Okay. And then once we have the ability to talk with them, we want to start to guide them through the journey. All those things that we would normally have set up to speak with somebody face-to-face when we're sitting down and when we're talking, we want to have that available so that it drips to them through emails, that it walks them step by step through a series of blog articles, some way or another that they're able to get that information without them having to sit down and talk with us and meet us face-to-face. And this has probably been the biggest part of COVID, is that as we've changed to be contactless, and have the social distancing, that convenience, that expectation of I should be able to just find all my information at 2 o'clock in the morning when I finally get to bed, or I don't want to have to wait for that price to be sent to me. I should be able to find my price right now. That's becoming the expectation. And if there's this roadblock that holds people up, they will leave and find someone else who's able to offer it to them without the hold up.
Right.
So this is the whole cost of the conversion to becoming a customer. Part of that is building up the urgency, why they need to make the decision, and also what it would cost them if they don't make a decision. We want to, when we're listing out what their alternatives are, put on there that, if you don't, this is what happens. We run into this a lot with websites when it comes to doing maintenance, doing the upgrades. People say, well, I don't need to do the upgrade. Maybe let's just do it, once a year or so. And we have to explain that, if you haven't done an update, it means that your software is out of date, and it means that there's usually some kind of hole that's been found that a hacker can get through. So here's the cost of not doing anything, is that you're less secure.
This part I just wanted to mention. This is really not technically part of marketing, but it bears mentioning that in the middle of all of this stuff, you actually are supposed to deliver the goods, and we try to follow a great maxim quoted by Steve Jobs that I absolutely love. Somebody asked him, "How do you define what a real artist is?" And it was a shocking answer. He said, "Real artists ship." In other words, if you're sitting in your garage thinking about it, you're not actually getting anything done. The job is to actually get it out the door, get it into the marketplace, get it evaluated, rinse, repeat, and adjust as needed. And then that gives you the chance to apply things like customer service and quality control and follow up.
One of the things that we also want to make sure is that once we have a customer, once we have shipped to them and we've been paid, that we somehow stay in connection with them. There's what's in marketing world what's called the circle of indifference. The circle of indifference, it refers to when people have gotten close enough to you that they no longer feel like they're getting any of your attention. All of the sales and marketing people are reaching outside their customer base, and all the people who are inside their customer circle, they're just not getting any attention. So they're feeling indifferent. And we want to make sure that we're not creating a circle of indifference for people, that our customers are getting just as much attention and energy as our future prospects are. We sometimes see this when we will make an offer to, 50% off for new customers, and our current customers are saying, wait a second, if I want to reorder, why can't I get the 50% off as well? And, and they start feeling slighted. And then the other part of it is making it as easy and as fun and rewarding for people to be able to talk about you. Whether that is that, there's a social media channel that they can link to, or that you give a call out to them so that they can share it. That, you create a case study that has their name or they're mentioned in there, and that they're able to promote that to other people. But some way so that a customer is able to say, I really, really like you guys. How can I tell others about you?
Which can be an incredible business driver, by the way. I don't know how many of you have discovered this either deliberately or accidentally, but when I was an illustrator in New York City, an illustrator and art director, and I was taking my portfolio around, and I was in the office of a really, really famous, powerful, senior creative director at an agency, but the portfolio was kind of a mess, and I asked him for his advice. Not on, giving me a job, but simply on my work and how to present it. And he acted like I had invited him out to the best lunch he'd ever had. And he spent 10 minutes going through everything with great care and giving me wonderful feedback. And afterwards, I realized he's staring at my work the whole time. We're developing a personal relationship. He can exercise all of his opinions, and there's no downside because he could be wrong, and who cares? It's not like he's going to kill a major advertising campaign. It was an incredibly rewarding experience. We developed a friendship out of it. I got great feedback. I adjusted based on what he had said. And so since then, I try to make it a practice. Sometimes I'm a little busy and get distracted and forget to follow up. And it's a mistake to do that. But your clients themselves can be one of the most valuable resources, and asking them for testimonials or for guidance or for referrals can actually be this incredible driver of not just new business, but repeat business.
Yeah. One of the other things that really can create an evangelist for you, I don't know if you've ever sat down with somebody who really appreciates a wine, or they're really into technology, and they have the story behind how they found that wine, or where the wine came from, or why they like that technology, or who the developer was. But because that the business created this story about the product that was easy for someone to be able to explain and to feel good about, this is now a conversation piece. I bought this, or I'm using this. and I want to explain why, who it is and how it maybe impacts the community, maybe because you believe in, that they're a green company or so forth, but they have a good story behind them, and that makes an evangelist very easy for them to go out there and promote you.
So we're going to kick into content marketing now, which is one aspect of what we're describing with you all today. It's a largely misunderstood term. A lot of folks think they know what content marketing, a lot of our new clients think they know what it is, but it's largely misunderstood, and I think bears some explaining. The notion of content marketing is not that you go out and grab all of the product shots or testimonials or whatever and blast those out there across a bunch of different platforms. The notion of content marketing is really that you voluntarily become a knowledge merchant, and that you're sharing what you want to say across the board, sometimes very often for free, and developing relationships and developing trust and encouraging dialogue and feedback and connection. And it's a very, very different way to look at it. Some of the earliest guys on YouTube were doing videos of themselves doing their job, whether it was, learning how to, be a veterinarian or a Mr. Fix-It, around the house kind of a guy, but actually watching movies of these people explaining what they do and how they do it, built an incredible following for some of them, particularly those who were, gifted in ways that really complemented that particular platform. So it's really worth thinking about. So really what we're saying is it's what you want to say, and then it's about really figuring out how to say it. And we've sort of broken this down into some specific steps, and we'll get into the details about these, which is really establishing a definition or a description of a core target audience, and then figuring out how to reach that audience, and then planning out desired outcomes, and then once again engaging that buyer's journey that way. So this is a typical audience conversion would be, describing the person, and then just really taking them from, let's call it, even rather than audience, let's call it total stranger, who becomes somebody that's interested and follows your brand, to somebody who actually is an ongoing customer or client, to somebody who's out there, call them a fan, call them an evangelist, who is advocating for you. At no charge, I might add, by the way. One of the things we found tremendously valuable is to look backwards and write down who are the top 10 clients. Another way to look at this is that I think a guy wrote a book on I think it's called The Pumpkin Plan. And it was really establishing who are the great big juicy pumpkins that are keeping your garden going, and who are the little weeds that are distracting you from the serious, significant clients that can keep a business alive. And as we all know, a lot of times those weeds can make more noise than a very satisfied, established big client. And you can end up just running around weeding a garden and never really taking care of the big clients. John, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and so you may want to take a look at your top 10 clients every year and put together, the answers that you think are to these questions, what they had. But then having a third party or somebody who's not directly connected with you, calling them and asking those clients, saying, I just want to make sure everything's good. I got some questions in terms of how the whole experience was, and then asking them, and then comparing, how does your answers match up to the answers that were given there? And what you'll find is that over time, every year, your top 10 clients will have different things that are happening because your business has changed, or the audience has changed, or the world has changed in some way or another. And you want to make sure that your marketing addresses that as well. All too often, we'll see things that are on someone's website or on their brochure, and it's clearly dated. It's talking about things from 3 years ago. The guy's still using a bag phone, in his picture rather than a standard, iPhone. And so things like that you want to make sure that what you're presenting out to the world matches up to where you are today.
I just want to mention, we got a very late start, a late start because of some technical difficulties. I'm hoping that a lot of the folks who've joined us today, there's a lot of you, can stick around a little bit because we're going to need to run long to get through the slides and to get the message across. So my apologies for that, but please do stick around. Hopefully you can bear with us until maybe 10 after 1 or quarter after or something like that, so we can go through. The next thing we talk about is really looking at those deliverables, much through the same exact lens John was just talking about, which is, how do your deliverables match up with what's working with significant clients on your top 10 list? And how does those deliverables help you define a core audience? And from there, it's a great idea to draw up a scenario and map out how do you want this thing to turn out? Let's say you've finished deliverables on a number of projects. What would you see down the road in 3 months, 6 months, a year as following up? How has your deliverable changed that client? What can they do that they didn't used to be able to do? And how does that present opportunities for you in the future for follow-up business, add-on marketing, side trips, all kinds of stuff?
And this is one of the areas where the big changes happened this year. Is people just don't have time to try to figure things out. So if you're giving them a piece of information, you need to make it very, very clearly what you would expect to be the next step for them. You're not just handing something to them and they go, oh, that's nice, and they just put it on the table. That it says right on there, get your discount now, call for a meeting, come view our house, whatever it is. That it's a very clear call to action that's listed on there.
And then this is a pretty typical, we do really talk a lot about segmenting, which is trying to establish which parts of your audience you're addressing. A great thing you can do, for instance, on email marketing, let's say you send out an email newsletter and let's say it's got 3 different sections to it. And one might be a kids event, one might be an event for young singles, and one might be an event for retirees. I'm just making this up. But you can actually create an email that, depending on which button they click, notifies MailChimp or Constant Contact, whoever, which segment that person clicked on. That automatically goes back and breaks up the list that you have with that email service. And now you've actually got yourself automatic segmenting. Now you know just who's opening what and what they're looking at and what they're interested in. There's dozens more techniques exactly like that to help you create sort of subcategories and look at different deliverables and different processes for each one. We rewrote this just basically if you're trying to approach a CEO. If you're looking for a buyer, that's a great course. And if you're looking for connecting with CEOs, you got to take a completely different tack, because they're basically, they have people whose entire job is to make sure you cannot connect with them and can't reach them. So we're going to segue over. I know we're running a little late, so I'm hurrying up just a tad over to just issues around configuring a website to really adapt to this particular strategy, to this particular approach that we're talking about today. So we'll just start with these processes. John, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
So typically when we've created websites in the past, really we were taking a brochure, changing that up to a website. It would be a lot of product positioning of services and such. And what we need to do is take a look at that website and make it pivot from selling a product to helping the visitor. And the best way to do that is by creating these personalized experiences, stories or information that's on the website that talks about ways that what we've done or what we're offering has helped somebody. And when we're looking at it, we want to make sure that the work that we're describing, that it matters. And the way that we know it matters is that it made a difference to someone. So if we can't describe how it made a difference in someone's lives, it probably doesn't matter enough to put on the website. So you really want to focus on, how is it going to affect somebody when they, they purchased a device or they hired you or so forth. And another thing that we look at is that when people are doing searches, they're not often searching for your product or service. That's pretty far down the funnel. They're looking to change something in their life. So we need to make sure that we're addressing with how that change happens and what it is that we do to make that change happen. And then ideally, we'd love to have testimonials or reviews or case studies on how we've helped others to make that similar change and tell those stories. Again, showing our authenticity, showing that we have experience, that we know what we're talking about, and that we've done it before. So we got to get away from the selling of our product and service and more in terms of how we help people.
Just a pretty simple matter. We talk about this, which is perceived needs. It's really important for you to try to discern underneath. People may say they want a 1/2-inch drill, when in fact what they need is a 1/2-inch hole. So it's your job to do a great job of understanding, listening, background research, and connecting in order to discern what's the underlying needs that you can satisfy. These are just some ways that you can modify a website to really make it much more user-friendly, especially given the times of COVID. And that is to really simplify your process, make it easy to get around. You all will be welcome to download this presentation afterwards. It's one of the reasons we're not reading off every single bullet. We figure you can read. We're giving you the general strokes, and then you can do the particular research later on. But ease of use is really key. If I could say one overarching thought, it's don't make me work. There was a great website book called Don't Make Me Think, put out years ago. That's not far off the mark. You're really trying to help guide people there. There's a direct correlation between the amount of clicks you're asking someone to undertake, the amount of page scrolls, and the amount of form fields to fill out, and them abandoning the page or abandoning a sales cart, shopping cart.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're seeing being added to websites are these things like chat robots and simplified forms that instead of having to fill out a form and hit submit and it gets emailed out to you, they put in, a robot or a chat box comes up saying, how can I help? Are you looking for A, B, or C? And it's just, I'm looking for A. And then that directs them down to the next level and making it as easy as possible for people to find exactly what they're looking for. I'm going to go back. Sorry, yeah. So when we're looking at the website, we want to make sure that we have content from all stages. That's not just the pricing or the solutions, that is also talking about the awareness and the testimonials, that we can reduce the obstacles for people having to have a personal experience, meaning they have to have a face-to-face. And that may be by adding things like virtual tours and demos, the Zoom webinars, like what we're doing, podcasts, any of these things where people are able to experience it without having to wait for us to answer them.
And if there's one thing we would encourage, it is for you to not try to be everything to everyone, but instead to really focus on what you do and really focus on the people who historically have made use of it or who can make use of it. The smallest viable audience is the term that we use in marketing, and it's just a great way to make your marketing much more efficient, but also maybe take some pressure off yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit about prospecting, and that includes looking at the channels that are available. People ask us all the time whether they should set up a Facebook platform, a Twitter feed, a YouTube channel, a Pinterest page, and our answer is almost always the same, which is try one out and just see how you do. There are people who are built for Twitter. They just naturally do that. They great at little sound bites and blasting stuff out. They're always on a phone doing it, and they're just natural tweeters. There's also folks who just take pictures constantly of everything they do and everywhere they go. And in that case, Instagram begins to make a lot of sense. There are folks who are incredibly charismatic and photogenic, for whom a YouTube channel makes tremendous sense. Folks who are really articulate and great speakers. You have to really look at each one and just figure out what makes sense to you. The one thing I would not suggest is build 7 channels and then put up barely anything on any of them, because what you're going to end up doing is just looking unprofessional. And then this is just a way we encourage people to look at it. You've probably heard this before, which is really just shared, paid, referred or recommended, and searched. These are sort of the 4 ways in which stuff is going to come to you. And it's important for you to look at each one of those separately, analyze them, and see where work has been coming from, where you can improve things. And this is really interesting. I don't know how many of you guys have done cold calling. I used to. It's one of the most painful things in the world. It's largely been entirely supplanted by search engines. We do advertising, but a lot of the advertising that we do is really, really micro-targeted. It's incredible if you look at what Google ads and Facebook ads allow in terms of super, super detailed data. People who have just had a baby, who are in their 30 to 38 years old, income level of blah, blah, living in this geographic area, and, you know, really like going to the movies. I mean, it's absolutely crazy the amount of detail available in big data right now. They're collecting it on all of us anyway. You might as well use it for your own purposes.
And one of the other trends that we're seeing is that outside sales activities, I mean, they've been dropping for the last decade, but in the last year, obviously, they really came to a halt. So all the activities that used to be done by the outside salespeople are now being done through digital marketing. So one of the things we need to look at is, you know, what is it that the sales teams are adding to the conversation, and how consistent are they in adding to that conversation? You know, we've all had the experience of, you know, some sales, we got good sales guys and bad sales guys, and they have good days or bad days. Fortune 500 companies, they're really looking to try to get rid of those variables from the salesperson's performance. And by taking most of this information and the process that they had and what they conveyed and putting that all online and guiding people through it online. And then the successful salesperson, they're shifting from the informed concept to now just confirming and being there to hold their hands just to you know, confirm that everything that the person has learned is actually true and feasible.
So we're going to just talk quickly about search. Search has changed radically. It's probably the single biggest thing that our clients and small business owners really need to focus on is the fact that mobile has really dominated search now. It's almost made desktop search, you know, a tertiary consideration, not even secondary. It owns so much of what's going on. And that includes, by the way, referrals over to local and integration with maps. And as AI improves and virtual reality improves, people are going to start wearing glasses that are telling you you're walking by this store, and your store listing is going to come up on the glasses with reviews as they're walking down the street eating an ice cream cone with their kid. That's not, you know, that far away. In fact, it already was being done with Google Glass, and now Apple is about to release glasses as well. So local search and mobile search have really become a major, major factor.
One of the other things we found with this work from home is that Cyber Monday used to be that, you know, people would go into work on the Monday after the Thanksgiving week, 4-day weekend, and they would 9 o'clock get online and start ordering things through Amazon or, you know, online. So it became this big holiday, Cyber Monday. And what they found this year is that it was still did well, but not nearly as well as they expected it to do, because people weren't going into an office and they weren't specifying that, okay, 9 o'clock on Monday morning is when I need to start ordering because I'm sitting in front of my computer. They've been sitting in front of their computer all the time. So the big shift on search is that it no longer is, you know, a time thing from 9 to 5 or only on certain days or so forth. It's all the time. And your home and your work life have been blended together. So you may get inquiries about work stuff or business at 11 o'clock at night. You may get inquiries about, you know, kids' activities at, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning.
All right, we're going to hustle through the rest here. Again, this entire presentation will be downloadable, and a lot of this stuff towards the end here involves SEO, and it involves analytics and measurement and optimizing. A lot of that stuff is, these slides are much less visual and more bulleted points, and that means they're largely self-explanatory. So you'll be able to download them, use them as notes, and establish some guidelines. And just by the way, we didn't mention, but anybody on the workshop is welcome to the webinar. It's welcome to contact me and John with specific questions as well. So again, we're just looking at how social media has changed in the sort of new world of post-pandemic online digital marketing. Video taking a gigantic leap forward, especially with radical changes coming in internet speeds. I don't think 5G is quite as here. It hasn't quite as arrived as much as your smartphone company would like you to believe it has, but it doesn't mean it's that far away. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, 5G will be ubiquitous. Email has changed radically. It's really incredibly easy now to personalize, incredibly inexpensive. The return on investment on email, as well as Messenger and SMS, is the highest of any marketing platform you can use. We always encourage people to take a look at how things are going. A lot of our clients are okay with putting out the content, but then when it comes to checking on Google Analytics or Facebook Insights, they'd rather visit the dentist than look at these numbers. And if that's the way you feel about it, hire somebody that can help you look at the analytics and adapt to fit. Facebook does an incredible job, so does Google Analytics. They're both free and really, really useful tools for letting you adapt your message and your posts and your techniques to what's really working and abandon what is not. And this lead conversion thing is a very, very big deal. So check that out some more too. And then we're just going to talk a little bit about optimizing some simple techniques that are really working these days. Google just came out with a brand new algorithm update. We did not get the material in time to put it into this workshop. John, what's a quick little phrase folks can type in to look that up?
Yeah, so the search is searcher's intent rather than keywords, and it's EAT, the expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So those are the two main areas that they focused on. So instead of figuring out, okay, what keyword do I need to have my content around or trying to optimize, it's more what is the searcher's intent that they're looking for.
Great. And this is just some more stuff on how to, again, optimize your content so that it's going to get recognized and so that you can convert and sell. We're seeing way more activity in the e-commerce front. E-commerce has become, for websites like Etsy, sort of stuff that started out relatively homegrown, have really come to dominate the marketplace. And we always encourage people, just like the folks who sell franchises don't always do as well as the folks who buy them, we encourage folks to market directly through those pre-established e-commerce websites like Etsy and others. YouTube direct response is doing a great job now. So you put something up on YouTube and there are images below, kind of like folks who bought this also bought that, and they'll link that right to your additional products. And then these are just two very simple techniques for getting found on search. And we're near the end, so we're just going to talk quickly about what we think are the must-dos. If you're not already using Google Analytics, you absolutely must have that installed on your website. Google Search Console is a great tool. Analytics sort of tells you what your traffic is doing on your website. Search Console tells you what your website is doing on the internet, which are two different measurements. And then looking at how you're ranking, how your website comes up on mobile devices. Speed audit has become a gigantic thing. And it's a huge part of Google's ranking, by the way. If your website is loading slowly, or what we call painting slowly, the different segments are painting in a long, frustrating fashion, you've got to go in and correct that stuff. And then last but not least is really doing a good job of testing UX. That's user experience. And I'd say the only thing you really need to know about user experience testing is that you're the least qualified person to measure it of anybody I can think of. We're all way too close to this stuff. You've got to get third party, whether it's friends and family, your brain trust, a board of directors, or a group of people that serve that way, or actually paying for independent third party testing. Here's another group of great 2021 must-dos that we'd recommend. We're not going to get into long tail and schema because we could be on this thing for many, many minutes to come going into the details, but look them up, check them out. I think the most important things, again, are going to be mobile and local. And that's our workshop. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Hello again. I hope you have been very attentive to the immense amount of information that John and Jeff have transmitted to us. I want you to know that in our agency we are very happy for you, for having reached this point, and we are very happy for you because you are on the way to see your business, your venture, your company, go from being where to a new level where you will be able to achieve growth and incalculable increase in experiences and enter the select group of companies that see their income increased 2x, 5x or even 10x. Our mobile marketing apps have the power to move your business from minimal income to unimagined income. Okay, before continuing, I want to introduce you to some of the powerful features that our tool has. See the power of this our tool, and then we move on to the closing of this powerful and special event. So yes, this is what our app offers you, so that you can achieve the success you've been longing for. Go to the button below, click on it and acquire this powerful tool. Keep in mind the following: applications in the market will find many and varied, but you will hardly find a tool designed and created by marketers, thinking of marketers, and that contains in the same package all the necessary characteristics to access the next level, increase your prospecting, increase your targeted leads and obtain the quantity and quality of clients you want, all through a scientific process, which eliminates chance and improvisation. We have two ways through which you can acquire your marketing mobile app. Enter by clicking on the button below and obtain the necessary information to take your business to the next level. Okay. See you inside.